So does improving access to nature create benefits for all? The myth that I'm trying to debunk here is that that's actually not true, that there is by class, race, and ethnicity an unequal access to the benefits of nature, especially but not only through processes of what we call in our research lab green gentrification. So I'm not an anti-nature by any means, but basically I'm just trying to put also the social dimensions ahead of environmental dimension. So what is the broader context here? It's a context of investment in nature-based solutions and green infrastructures for a diversity of benefits for their multifunctionality as a climate solution. This is all a big urban planning discourse, as well as for health and social benefits. Basically, there's a form of natural trickle-down exposure effect mechanism by which being closer to nature has these health and social benefits. And research in environmental epidemiology in particular has been very good at demonstrating those benefits. For example, looking at mental health benefit, reduced anxiety, improved sleep, as well as reduced death in the summer. But I will say it's not enough. And it's not enough because green is not a neutral environmental and social urban planning interventions. It's part of a global green mission, which is articulated around renderings like this one here in Boston, where I used to live, like the Boston Harbor as a resilient green area. And it's also articulated around competitions and prices to which cities apply in order to anchor their green identity, in order to demonstrate through a form of competitive urbanism and private profit making at the end of the day that they are the most sustainable, the most livable, and at the end of the day to attract new classes, creative residents, higher income groups, as well as investments. But the question is, for whom is this true in the long and midterm? Who has access to the benefits of nature in mid-size and large-size cities? What we argue in our lab is that we're actually confronted with a green paradox, which is by trying to bring in nature in sometimes deprived areas, we're actually creating a divisive access to nature through displacement and segregation, through the deep relationship that exists between green urbanism and private capital accumulation and real estate speculation. This is a bit of a complicated graph that we like to have as social scientists, which basically tells you three things. That urban greening 2.0, so the branding of nature in the city, is contributing to three different processes. First, the building and marketing of new high-end homes in gentrifying areas, and formerly working class areas, increasing land and property values and costs, and also the production of an inclusive use of nature areas by certain types of residents. This in turn accelerates or produces gentrification, which is the substitution and the replacement of formerly working class, less educated areas, lower income and racialized groups by more privileged residents, who themselves are also able to attract more green investments because of their political or economic power. What does that mean? It means the segregation of residents into, in the end, more gray and more climate unprotected areas, because those are going to be more affordable. They are going to be less costly for those residents to live in, making green a form of green sacrifice zone in the city. How have we studied this? Through basically spatial and quantitative analysis that has shown us that, for example, in 99 cities in North America and Europe, we find high statistically significant associations between high levels of urban green branding and high unaffordability. Who is able to live in the green city, like Vancouver here on the right? Residents with greater financial power. We've also looked at patterns of green gentrification in 28 cities in North America and Europe, and found that out of 28 cities, 17 exhibit green gentrification patterns, and in particular, the ones on the right exhibit lead green gentrification patterns. That means that greening is the most important factor to explain gentrification and displacement. Not tourism, not real estate development, not transit, but actually greening per se, because again, it is embedded in green branding mechanism and in international competitions. And if you look at those cities here, you see those that are actually very strongly advertised and publicized as green: Copenhagen or Vancouver, or Austin in the US. Green gentrification also not just about the physical displacement. It's also a form of cultural displacement when it is associated with white privilege and in some ways, white supremacy practices. You can see it in Montreal here, where some of the green areas are more heavily policed than others. In Washington, DC, where there is a new park being built and residents are expressing, Black residents are expressing, when they are done, most of us won't be here to enjoy the new park. We will be good enough to serve you Slurpees and hot dogs at the River Festival, but not to be here. And so what do we see at the end of the day? A multiplication of environmental racisms. Not only are those working class neighborhoods actually still deeply affected by environmental contamination that's not being remediated, but are also being part of a glossy green practice that is juxtaposed to these environmental contamination sources and creating these multiple environmental racisms. Just to conclude, I will say that the policy and planning path towards urban green justice means the association of two different types of tools, anti-displacement tools, as well as more inclusive, more informal dimensions of greenings, though that are less flashy and that are really reflecting dimensions of inclusivity and informal use of green space. Climate justice, green justice is in the end housing justice. And I'll finish here, recommended literature. So ensuring secure access to nature for all is possible, but it reflects and it must reflect deep economic and housing policy that will guarantee that those who benefit from greening and are from working class or racialized backgrounds can remain in those green neighborhoods.